Hi everyone, today I'm going to rank the movies in the Friday the 13th franchise, from worst to best. So the Friday the 13th franchise consists of 12 movies, 8 made by Paramount Pictures and 4 made by the studio behind a Nightmare on Elm Street franchise, New Line Cinema, which consisted of a crossover with the Nightmare on Elm Street's Freddy Krueger, a reboot of the series, and 2 that we don't talk about. The series is usually Jason Voorhees, a hockey mask wearing serial killer, killing camp counselors while wearing his iconic hockey mask, or sometimes it's a bag. Heck, sometimes it's not even Jason. Sometimes it's his mum, or a weird demon worm that's apparently Jason. But we'll get back to that. So with all that out of the way, let's rank the movies. Coming in at last place is obviously Jason Goes to Hell. New Line's first film with a highly profitable killer, and they decide to kill him off in 10 minutes. They also called this The Final Friday, despite getting the rights to the property just now, but it teases the next movie at the end. Nice job, New Line. The movie also has a weird story, boring characters, and like 10 minutes of Jason. And the whole reason you'd watch this movie is for Jason. Like, we don't even get to see Jason in hell, and that's the title of the movie. Come on, do better. Slicing its way into 11th place is Friday the 13th Part 5, A New Beginning. After the success of 1984's The Final Chapter, which saw the death of Jason Voorhees, the studio decided to keep this franchise going with a sort of whodunit style movie, more in line with the original Friday. Part 5 still manages to feel like a Friday the 13th movie, with the same type of characters, a lot of sex, and a lot of swearing, especially in this movie since the director just said, do what you want, which is kind of cool, I guess. But this movie loses the one key part of the franchise, that it doesn't have its essential killer. Aside from that, this movie's just flat out boring and not much fun to watch. In 10th place is the 2009 reboot. The one redeeming quality of this movie is Jason himself, with Derek Mears giving one of my favourite portrayals of the hockey mask maniac. Derek's version of Jason being more of a hunter who can run quickly and uses a vast selection of weapons, which I really like and feels like a breath of fresh air compared to the slow stalker we're used to. But aside from the great interpretation of Jason in this movie, it's just a bland horror movie with a boring story, unlikable characters, and even the look of this movie feels nothing like a Friday movie. Slashing its way into the ninth spot on my list is Part 8, Jason Takes Manhattan. In the eighth movie in the franchise is also the last one made by Paramount. This was marketed as Jason killing the citizens of the Big Apple, but only about the last 15 minutes of the movie were set in New York. 90% of it was just Jason killing a group of students on a boat, and the parts that were set in the Big Apple weren't actually filmed there. Well, except for that one shot of Jason in Times Square, which is pretty awesome. The eighth movie on this list is Friday the 13th Part 3. Now, this movie is where Jason gets his iconic hockey mask, so that's kind of the big selling point here. But at the time, the biggest selling point was the 3D of this movie, which was revolutionary for the time. Aside from some cool gimmicks and kills, along with the iconic hockey mask, this movie is really boring and almost a worse version of the movies that came before it. And getting Jason's iconic look is kind of wasted on this one, because he usually just hides in the shadows most of the time. Sawing into 7th place is 2001's Jason X. Now, this is the point in the list where I start to have some fun with these movies. Now, I know this is an objectively bad movie, but I had a lot of fun with it. For me, this is the definition of a so bad it's good movie. It has a silly premise, silly characters, and is an overall silly movie, but I think that's part of the fun, and it knows not to take itself too seriously. Also, I have to say it, Uber Jason looks awful, but he is badass. In 6th place, we have the original Friday the 13th movie from 1980. As iconic as this is, I think this movie is an absolute drag to get through. It has forgettable characters, and it's just really boring until that third act where Betsy Palmer absolutely saves the movie when it's revealed that her character of Pamela Voorhees has been the killer all along. Her performance was amazing, and it single handedly saved this movie from being a total failure. Beheading into the top 5, we have the 7th film in the Friday franchise, The New Blood. Part 7 is about a Carrie knockoff going head to head with Jason in Kane Hodder's first stab at the character, and probably his best. Kane is my, and most other people's favourite Jason for one reason: he's perfect for the role. With his build and the way he acts, Kane is for sure the best Jason we've had to date. This film is one that I know isn't good by any means, but I still have a lot of fun with it, seeing as Jason finally gets to go up against someone who stands a chance against him. The fourth spot on this list will have to go to the fan favourite Friday the 13th, The Final Chapter. The fourth and almost final entry in this franchise is definitely one of the strongest, with memorable, unlikable characters to root for, and Jason finally being put in the ground for good, at least for a while. There's a lot to love about the final chapter, and my favourite character is Crispin Glover and his weird dancing. To kick off the top three, we have A Nightmare on the 13th in Freddy vs. Jason. The crossover between the Friday the 13th franchise and the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise that fans, along with the people behind these movies, had been begging for. One of the people who had voiced their support for this crossover was Kane Hodder, who sadly was not the one who played Jason in this. That really sucked, but I don't really mind how Jason was portrayed here. This movie is definitely a lot more of a Freddy movie than a Jason movie, but I'm a pretty huge fan of both franchises, so I have a lot of fun with this movie. Our runner up is Friday the 13th Part 2. Released only 1 year after the original, the second Friday sees a grown up and very clumsy Jason Voorhees living in a shack in Crystal Lake, wearing a bag on his head and worshipping his dead mother's rotting skull. Pretty normal stuff. He also commits a few murders here and there when some teenagers decide to come to Crystal Lake. This this movie is almost like a retelling of the original, but almost every single thing here is better by a lot than it was in the first film. And finally, my favourite Friday the 13th movie is Friday the 13th Part 6 Jason Lives. This is the best movie in the series for me. It's a cool story, good characters, and great kills, especially that triple decapitation, all make for an excellent Friday flick and a great end to the Tommy Jarvis trilogy. And Zombie Jason is by far the best Jason. This is definitely the best Friday movie and certainly my favourite. Thank you all for making it to the end of my list, and if you agreed, great. And if your list is different, then let me know what it was down below in the comments. I'll see you next time. Goodbye.